going to be 100 degrees outside, and there is no way to avoid everybody being drenched in sweat when you are doing a holiday movie where you're going to be wearing long sleeves and pants. Otherwise, it's not a believable Kansas City December movie.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm going to be one of the ones staying around as an extra. Listen, you got to put it in the hands of Hallmark. They've been here before. They've done this before. They're sitting their first rodeo of this thing happening in July. They've done it before. It will be just fine, and it will be cool, and it will feel like December. All right? It is going to be beautiful. And I'm telling you, weed out the ones who are weak. Because All right, fellas, you know what happens when Alex Smith is no longer your quarterback, Steve DeBerg's no longer your quarterback, and Tyler Thigpen's no longer your quarterback. You've gotten out of the Brody Croyle years. No Steve Bono. You get Hallmark movies. That's what happens. That's what happens when you get a guy like Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. You get Hallmark movies. Hallmark wants to come calling to you. They want to use you. So now, what is this? What is this thing? Hallmark is it called? What is it? A holiday touchdown? Is that the name of this silly thing? A holiday.
Isn't that? I think they just make a movie like that every year and just change the name. Like it's the same thing every year. And this year, it's a football themed Christmas romance movie for some reason.
It's called Holiday Touchdown: A Chief's Love Story.
Is that the title? Holiday Touchdown?
That's the working title.
Chief's
yes, absolutely.
Oh, wow, a Chief's love story. Wow.
This is our version of Fever Pitch. I've always wondered what it would be like to be the fan base that got Fever Pitch made about your team. And now we get the low budget Hallmark version of that, which is going to be great.
I'm DVRing it, and I am straight up. I'll watch it multiple times, break it down because I want to see. I want to see how much they use of the Chiefs, how much Arrowhead action they use, how much we get to see they're going to be doing with the Chiefs. And I'll be honest with you, I know they're looking for extras. I may fly down to try to be in it. Now I probably won't be successful because I'm going to try to be the most remembered extra of all time, like blatant stares into the cameras, and really sell it so I can get maybe if I could give myself a speaking part, like excuse me, like if I could get one of those
you got to go with the ope. You got to go with the Midwest ope.
Excuse me. Excuse me. If I can get one of those, I'm in this piece. It just cracks me up. So I said this the other day to somebody. Anytime I think like it doesn't get any wilder. I won't say bigger. I mean, nothing gets bigger than this Taylor Swift thing. But if it doesn't get any more wilder of things that they do, here we go. Here we go again. Here we go. Hallmark Movie Channel wants to do a Chiefs love story. Holiday touchdown.
I've been poking fun at this all week because obviously this is going to be a terrible movie. And
you don't know.
And Hallmark does not make good movies. Like this is not.
I don't think that's fair for you to say. I don't think that's fair for you to say. I have an honest confession. I like a good Hallmark movie.
I like Hallmark movies. I think they're great. They're perfect to have on in the background during Christmas season, and I don't have to spend any time watching it because I know the plot, because I've seen whatever the movie is that is on at that given time. I've seen it roughly 37 times, and I'll enjoy it every single time. They're great. They're delightful. It's perfect for that time of the season. I have one problem with the way that they're shooting this one, though. Do you guys see when they're set to begin production on this in Kansas City, Missouri for a Christmas movie?
July.
What do you think that's going to be like? It's going to be 100 degrees outside, and there is no way to avoid everybody being drenched in sweat when you are doing a holiday movie where you're going to be wearing long sleeves and pants. Otherwise, it's not a believable Kansas City December movie. And you're going to be doing this out in Kansas City when they're getting ready to report to St. Joe, and you've got Rashee Rice over there throwing up on day one because it is dog hot out there. No chance. No
Trying
chance
to-
that's gonna work.
Trying to wear winter clothes and 95% humidity in Kansas City.
No, yeah. Well, that's why I'm going to be one of the ones staying around as an extra. Listen, you got to put it in the hands of Hallmark. They've been here before. They've done this before. They're sitting their first rodeo of this thing happening in July. They've done it before. It will be just fine, and it will be cool, and it will feel like December. All right, it is going to be beautiful. And I'm telling you, weed out the ones who are weak, because I'll be there. I'll put on a first down coat. I'll put on a skull cap. I'll do whatever. I'll do whatever it takes. I will wear it all, and I will make myself not sweat.
Have you ever seen the Ichiro quote about Kansas City?
No, what did he say?
Yes.
Ichiro's favorite American expression is August in Kansas City. It's hotter than two rats bleeping in a wool sock.
Yeah,
that is what they're about to film. A Hallmark film in the month of July. It's going to be horrific.
Nope. I trust Hallmark. Put it in their hands. They've got this. They've got this thing.
I'm assuming that the people who have already signed on to this movie have never been to Kansas City.
No chance.
I bet you.
No chance.
I bet you the people part of it are Kansas City people. I bet you they are actors that are Kansas City people.
I don't think that's the case.
Tyler Hines is from Toronto.
Yeah, it may not just be Tyler. There may be somebody else in this thing whose name that
Hunter King is from Ventura County, California.
Those are just the two you have. There may be others. You don't know. There may be a Donovan in there.
Bagley Jr. is from
Kansas
Los
City.
Angeles.
Yeah. That's where he lives now. He was born in Wichita.
He's 74. They're gonna kill this poor man.
Yes, no, they're not. Here before. I'm just telling you, you got to trust them. And you know what, Serda? What I don't like is you're not walking into the door with a good attitude. You're walking into it wanting to hate.
I'm not going to watch it. I have zero interest in watching.
You're not. You are. You are too going to watch it.
I am not
going to watch it. I can't wait.
I watch real films. This isn't a real film. This is a made-for-television.
Stop.
That is a made-for-television garbage product that is recycled over and over and over again. And some people like it. I will admit that. But I am a snob when it comes to what I like to watch, and I will not watch this movie. I refuse.
You may remember Tyler Hines from his hits, It Was Always You, Three Wise Men and a Baby, a picture of her, Roadhouse Romance, or maybe Winter in Vale.
I'm happy Tyler is getting a lot of work from the Hallmark channel.
I just don't.
I am not going to watch it.
You're not even giving it a shot. That's the part I don't like. You're not even giving it a shot.
The Hallmark. I think he exclusively
works. Ridiculous. You make yourself hate it, even if you do like it.
I would rather go see the new Kevin Costner 3-hour Western that's probably going to be terrible.
You know what you're like? You're like a person from Memphis or Houston or Dallas or Austin who comes up to Kansas City to eat barbecue, but is going to force themselves to believe that it's disgusting no matter what happens, no matter how it tastes. Going into the door, it's going to be horrible because you want it to be. All right?
If you're the person from Memphis that's doing that, by the way, I love your city. I think Memphis is one of the most underrated cities in America. If you are talking trash about Kansas City because of your barbecue, you, sir, or ma'am, are a lunatic because your barbecue is not very good.
It's all right. Rendezvous is not bad.
It's super average. It's fine.
Neely's I had a nice sandwich from Neely's. But no, you're that guy. I love chick flicks.
It's fine.
And I call them rom-coms. That's my favorite genre of film. So I can dive straight in to a.
You want to watch a brilliant rom-com that came out recently? Watch Hitman. It's a fantastic movie.
Is it good? Is it good? I thought about trying.
It's wonderful. It's a brilliant movie. I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
I loved him in the last one he was in that I saw with my old girl from Euphoria.
Sydney Sweeney. I don't remember. I didn't see that one. I don't remember.
Yeah. That's a strong one.
Anyone But You, I think.
Can I just quickly a quick story? His name's Glenn Powell. His mom. Or his sister, daughters are on Courtney's soccer team, And,
Oh, really?
Yes. Courtney's the coach. Courtney was the coach of the soccer team. And we were going over, by the way, her side hustle. She doesn't work, but she makes salsa. But on the side, yeah, she makes a really good jalapeno salsa. But and she doesn't mind the drink either. But but she goes, yeah, my brother's an actor. His name is Glenn Powell, and I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't know he was. And then I just kept seeing him everywhere. I just kept seeing him everywhere.
He's like one of the stars in Top Gun.
And they're like, yes.
And
it
he's got Twisters coming out later this year.
Like, yeah, because we needed that. And he was like, then they're like, yeah, Uncle Glenn. And now every time I see him, that's all I think about.
You should watch Hitman. It's awesome.
Shout out to Lauren Powell.
By the way, Tyler Hines, the lead actor in this movie that's going to be based in Kansas City, he's got a 59-acre ranch outside of Ottawa. Man, you're leaving that, which I would assume is just like perfect weather in July, and you're coming to Kansas City to record this movie. Man, I feel for Tyler Hines.
Well, how do you think No, why? How do you think he paid for that? By working.
Young man apparently began acting at the age of 8, so probably over the last 50 years. I don't know
how they're gonna simulate cold when you're gonna be sweating as soon as you step outside.
You guys stop. All right,
I'm excited to see the shots of Weston, though. That's gonna be cool.
I just don't like the negative place you're in. You know, you're not gonna steal my joy, as someone once said. You're not stealing mine. I can't wait for it. Holiday touchdown.
Hey, Ron, did you see the other big story from earlier today? I think you might have missed this. Mike Florio, ever present in Kansas City Chiefs Twitter.
28.
Did you see what he's now pushing?
Yeah, Pat's going to retire. Now we got to look.
Patrick Mahomes is 28 years old. He'll be 29 on September 17th. And as he gets closer to 30, the questions about how long he will play are inevitable. That was the lead story today on Pro Football Talk. God bless Mike Florio.
He's got to wait at least 2 more years to speculate about Andy Reid retiring now that he signed an extension.
And you know what? It worked.
They got me to talk about it.
All I've heard before even coming here, I've heard it talked about all day. All I've heard. And that's what you do in June. That's what you do 2 weeks into it. Into 2 weeks into training camp start. You know what? I want to try one. Can I try one? I want to try a Mike Florio one. Although I don't think mine is as crazy as Mike Florio. I don't think this is a hot take, but I think some of you listening right now are going to believe it is, are going to lose it, or are going to no. Won't want to make yourself believe that. I think Chris Jones has passed up Derrick Thomas as the best defensive player in the history of this franchise. And I know it. I know that's a tough one. Derrick Thomas, that's the only Chiefs jersey that I own right now, is 5'8", all red. And Derrick Thomas was my guy. It's my favorite football player. It was Derrick Thomas. I love DT. Sometimes when I'm feeling kind of down in the dumps, I like to turn on that meltdown he had against the Denver Broncos, just to kind of watch him just absolutely melt down and lose it. And I'd like, you know what? It's not that bad. Derrick lost it right there in front of the world on Monday Night Football. It's not that bad. Derrick is my guy. I love Derrick. There's nothing scarier than him coming off that corner, that edge, and so many times we've seen him do it, force safeties and all that. But, man, both of them have 5 All-Pros. Both of them have 2 first-team All-Pros and 3 second-team All-Pros. Now, Derrick right now has played more games and he has more sacks, and that's not a shocker either, coming from the outside, and Chris primarily in his career coming from the inside. But obviously, we know Chris's career isn't done, so he's still got some work to get there. But for me, I think the big thing is both of them are dominant. Both of them, obviously, Derrick's already in the Hall. I think Chris clearly is going in the Hall. But for me, I think Chris gets extra points obviously, in this conversation because of how impactful, important, and big plays he has made in the biggest games. And that's while having maybe, when it's all said and done, the best player in the history of the sport on his team. He has become bigger than him in moments. And you all know the games. There aren't that many games that we can say that about with Derrick Thomas. And unfortunately, that's not all Derrick's fault, because you can list some of those quarterbacks he's had to play with. The best one he had was a decrepit Joe Montana with a bad tennis elbow. But the rest of it, but he just didn't make those big plays. He was there for 13 and 3 seasons that went down the drain and couldn't come up with big enough plays. Chris Jones, the Chiefs definitely would not have Super Bowls if it weren't for him. And you can specifically point out moments and plays that he made that stopped that as early as or as late as last year, multiple times. So I think, to me, he has passed Derrick Thomas as the best defensive player I've ever seen.
Man, it's really interesting because, like, my immediate reaction was, well, one of them is just so excellent and their peak, and Derrick Thomas was so high that it's hard for me to say, like, Chris Jones has reached that at any point. And yet, like, as of today, Chris Jones is the best defensive tackle in the NFL, and there is no close second. Like, now that Aaron Donald is gone, he's the best DT in the league. And I mean, he's one of the 3 to 4 probably best defensive players in the league right now. He's on that, at least the conversation for the Mount Rushmore of best defensive players in the league. And that's at the age of 30, man. That's pretty damn impressive. I think part of this is skewed for me, Ron, Serda. Same thing for both of you as well, given our ages. I watched Derrick Thomas through a kid's eye, right? And so, like, what he did was unlike anything I'll ever see again, because it seemed impossible. Like, he was like a superhero out there doing what he was doing. Meanwhile, Chris Jones, I've seen his entire career as an adult. Like, I graduated college before Chris Jones became a Kansas City Chief. So you just watch it differently. You consume it differently. And it feels different as you're watching it. And they've won titles with Chris Jones. So just like their entire careers could not be more dissimilar in terms of how I consumed them and also how the team performed while they were on the roster. And yet, as you take a minute to kind of sit back and really consume it, I think by the end, Chris will probably go down as the better Chief. I don't think I'm there yet, though, Ron. And the reason why is just because of pure dominance. You're on mute right now.
I got you. What stops you? I didn't want to cross you.
So
what stops you getting there?
The thing that stops me is just like the early career dominance that we saw from Derrick Thomas. Like, it feels Barry Sanders-ish, where, like, any conversation you have about a running back and you're like, hey, who's the greatest running back to ever do it? You could say Barry Sanders, and I'm like, yeah, there's really nothing that I can say that's going to dissuade your opinion on that. Because if somebody says Barry Sanders, that's because of how great his ceiling was. Like, at his best, he might have been the best to ever do it. And at Derrick Thomas's best, he was one of probably like the 5 greatest pass rushers in the history of the sport. I can't even say Chris Jones necessarily was the greatest defensive tackle of this era. I think that's still Aaron Donald to me. And so that's the difference. Like, I think Derrick Thomas was, for edge rushers, what Aaron Donald has been for defensive tackles. And so it becomes difficult for me to say, okay, yeah, then Chris Jones is the guy that I would take right now over Thomas, DT. But I think if he does this for another 3, 4, 5 years, by the end of that, given what the playoff success is as well, the career is going to speak for itself. And at that point, it's going to be hard for me to deny.
Yeah, I still think that it's Derrick Thomas over Chris Jones, but it's when we're talking about just like recency bias and the fact that Chris Jones has been so instrumental in winning rings, like that's going to weigh really heavily in people's minds, especially if, you know, Chris Jones, who is getting up there in age now, like if he continues to still be a dominant player and still be a force for them for the next couple of years and they manage to win another Super Bowl or two, like I think in most people's minds, Chris Jones is going to be the greatest defensive player in Kansas City Chiefs history. But it's just when you take it as a whole, though, and you really try to like weigh his entire career, it's like, yeah, Chris Jones has had some dominant seasons, and we know how dominant he can be when he wants to turn it on, when he flips the switch in the postseason. He wants to just absolutely dominate, and we've seen him just absolutely take over games before where you're like, whoa, like that dude is playing like he is the best player on the field, and they have Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. But he also disappears at times, and he's had too many stretches in his career where I think he just disappears for long stretches of times, or where you question how much effort he's putting in to on a weekly basis and things like that, where it was just like Derrick Thomas. It was like all you ever thought about was just like, oh man, like that guy, it's just coming at you off the edge and there's nothing you can do about it because he's just faster than everybody else is.
Yeah, but Steve, I think that what you just said kind of comes into what BK was saying. I think you watch those two players out of different prisms, right? Like I think if you watched Derrick Thomas in your adult eye, and to be honest, we didn't even cover, even if we were of age, we didn't even cover the game. I bet you there are some people out here who are loyal listeners to us and Foolish Club Media who were of age and thought Derrick Thomas and his warts that he took plays off. That are people would tell you Derrick Thomas crushed us. I can remember hearing this, killed us because he's rushing the passer all the time, and that he would get killed on the run because he's coming upfield and people are just running between him. Because I think the game is covered, and we look and break down the Chris Jones stuff so much. I mean, maybe he takes off plays. I would bet that Derrick Thomas probably, we would say things like that about him too, with this negative thoughts right there. And at that time, I hear you said edge rushers to you, BK. They were like, I almost still consider him a defensive end, right? In that time frame, and like it was, Reggie was still there, who was really, really great in that time. Reggie White, Bruce Smith was still there, who was really, really great at that time. So I think he was in the range of those guys, and I think there are probably some people who believe at least Reggie may have been somebody that was better than him. But yeah, you're right. Like this run that Chris Jones may have in front of him, if he could do it for the next couple of years, like that is something that could take him even more up a notch. But man, I just big games. I can remember. I don't have a lot of memories of Derrick Thomas in the Colts game when they lost with the Lil Elliott game, although they gave up 10 points. But I don't have a lot of memories. I don't have a lot of memories of the Denver game that they lost that, couldn't make the play to get Terrell Davis down or couldn't make the play to get John Elway down. Man, there's just so many moments and plays where Chris Jones just took over and just ended in the biggest game. So for me, if you are of Derrick Thomas, I'm not going to say that you're nuts. I can understand it. And the numbers when you talk about sacks are on his page. I wonder what the playoff sacks numbers are. I wonder what those numbers are between those
You'd be
guys.
surprised.
Well, I know Chris Jones went a long time without getting any, but
Chris went 7 seasons without a playoff sack.
Yeah, it's actually significantly in favor of Derrick Thomas. Derrick Thomas has 6.5. Chris Jones only has 2.5 in the playoffs.
It sure feels like more than that.
Right. Yeah. He's been more productive. If you just look at like the plays that he's made that don't show up in the stat sheet, he's more productive in that regard. The other thing, Ron, like I do think when we're talking about sacks, just like when we talk now about receivers or quarterbacks, and you're talking about passing yards, like you have to adjust for era in such a significant way now. And I think the same thing needs to happen with sacks because we don't really think of it this way. But like I just looked this up. The Kansas City Chiefs in 1990, which was kind of the first big time season by Derrick Thomas. He was rookie of the year in 1989, but 1990 was his first year where he was like renowned as the dude. 512 passing attempts against the Chiefs that year. For context, last year against the Kansas City Chiefs, there were 620 passing attempts. So the Chiefs faced 100 more pass attempts last year, which means 100 more pass rush snaps essentially available to them last season than what Derrick Thomas had available to him in 1990. So it's just a totally different game. And the opportunities that existed for Derrick Thomas were different because of that. He had fewer opportunities to rush the passer. There was more emphasis on the running game back then, which certainly we all remember fondly. But it's a different game. And you also look at how they were relative to their peers. So from 1990 to 1998, Derrick Thomas was second in the NFL with 109 sacks. Reggie White was first with 111. Chris Jones basically in his peak. So 2018 to today, it's less time. I'm not doing one for one in terms of their sacks, but relative to their peers. He has 67 sacks. Number one in the NFL in that stretch is TJ Watt with 90 sacks. Myles Garrett has 81 in that stretch. Aaron Donald is third with 72. Chris Jones fourth, 67 sacks over that stretch of time. It's just relative to their peers. If you adjust for position, maybe that's where you come into like the difference there. But
I think there's an adjustment.
If you're talking relative to their peers and you think about the adjustment for their eras, Derrick Thomas was just at this point the superior player, in my opinion.
I think there's also something to the point, though. I understand there's more pass attempts, but in a way, there's almost some sense of balancing it out because quarterbacks and offenses today, I mean, their passing game is directly sometimes against the pass rush, as opposed Derrick Thomas, he had quarterbacks holding the ball a lot longer.
Oh, yeah.
7-step drops a lot longer than quarterbacks do here. There may be more pass attempts, but I mean, like there were quarterbacks there in his time. They were trying to make a play, or they weren't just bam. As soon as I get the snap, I'm throwing it. So I think there's a little bit.
RPOs weren't a thing back then, right?
Yes,
like they weren't getting it, reading one spot, and then boom, getting it out. The Miami Dolphins offense did not exist in 1993. Yeah, that's
when
that's
Jim
fair.
Jim Kelly's dropping back. It's a 7-step, and he was probably the closest one in that K-gun offense. But hell, he's dropped when Dan Marino's dropping back. When John Freeze and Stan Humphrey, they're dropping back. It's a 7-step drop, and they're gonna sit there and wait. And he wasn't dealing with Lamar's very much. He wasn't dealing with guys that were elusive to get away from him either. So they're great players. I think I just right now for me, I think the big thing is the big moments is what kind of takes it up for me at the next level. All right, I do want to get into I think this is going to be the absolute biggest story in camp and the biggest at least camp battle, and that is the left tackle spot with Wanya Morris and Kingsley. How you say this man's last name?
Suamataia.
Yeah. Suamataia. Suamataia says Suamataia. Oh, KS, baby. Oh, Kingsley. Kingsley Suamataia. Somebody get it to Charles Barkley. I want him. I bet he'll tear that thing up. But no, I think that's a big battle with that. By the way, real quick, guess right here, as we sit here on this pod several weeks out, who wins that battle? Who's the starter? Who's the starter week 1 at home against the Baltimore Ravens?
Kingsley.
Yeah, the talent.
I think it's Wanya, but I think Kingsley will be like early in the season.
Oh, you think they'll switch? I think, yeah, I'm with Kingsley too. I think the talent and the size, I think they'll roll with. I think it's going to be a great battle and one we're hearing about, and obviously a very important battle with protecting Patrick Mahomes' blind side. But what it jumps to me immediately is it makes me look at the Joker on the other side. Now, listen, last year was year 1. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl, so a lot of the negative stuff that happened on the right side of the offensive line is just kind of got dropped and stuff, and you win a Super Bowl and kind of people push past it, but now the season has started. That dude over there that got $80 million, if they're going to have a potential rookie over there, if they're going to have Wanya Morris, who definitely needs help, they're going to have that over there. Yes, they're going to have to help on that side. They're going to have to put tight ends on that side. They're going to have protection swung over to that side. And with that dude over there who got $80 million, who is one of the highest paid players on the team, that's 20+ per year. This year, was he 25 to the cap this year? That dude's got to be able to hold his own. The Chiefs have to be able to depend on Jawaan Taylor on the right side to not lead the damn NFL in penalties as a individual player, and to be able to hold it down so they don't have to help him. That to me, that left side makes me immediately think about what they need from Jawaan Taylor. It's got to be better than last year.
I'm totally with you. The Jawaan Taylor thing is one of the biggest stories for the Chiefs in 2024. I mean, he's making $20 million this year, man. He's going to make $20 million from the Kansas City Chiefs. And one of the most underrated storylines, I think Josh Briscoe was the one that I first heard say this, and it's such a good point. If I just asked you this very simple question, is Jawaan Taylor good? I legitimately don't know the answer to that question. Like, I couldn't tell you yes or definitively no. I couldn't say either way. And we need to know the answer to that question is yes by the end of this season, because he's going to be back again next year, man. They can't get out of this contract until 2026. If they were to cut him next offseason, it costs them $5 million more than having him on the roster. So you can't cut him. He's going to be here for at least 3 seasons. This was a massive contract that the Chiefs handed out. This is like the Anthony Hitchens deal, right? Like, you got him here. Hopefully he's good. Otherwise, it's disaster for the Kansas City Chiefs. And they don't know right now what they have in Jawaan Taylor, because last year was a disaster. And it started from basically right off the bat. The first time that they were on Sunday Night Football, and they pointed out, it was Chris Collinsworth. He was like, hey, Jawaan Taylor does this thing where he really gets out of his stance quickly. Ever since then,
fullback. He's lined up at the fullback.
They're like, hey, you got to watch Jawaan Taylor. He's getting out of his stance pretty early. I think it became very clear to everybody that was watching. The refs saw that and the league saw that, and they were like, hey, we can't let this go unnoticed. Even though there's like 10 tackles across the league that do the exact same thing. He was getting singled out, and he never adjusted. And he was pulled out of games because he was such a problem for the Chiefs last year. Like, there were drives where they said, we can't have our $20 million right tackle out there right now because he's just killing drives. That can't happen, especially when you have a left tackle that we all know is going to make mistakes, because either one of them that starts is young. And that's what happens when you have a young offensive tackle. You deal with the growing pains and you live with it, because you hope the next year, the next couple of seasons, that guy's going to be really good down the road. But you can't have both Jawaan Taylor and that other rookie or second-year tackle making mistakes simultaneously, because then you end up in a position like they were a few years ago where you've got Mahomes running for his life. That's unacceptable.
And I feel like we give so much credit to the Chiefs coaching staff and like Andy Heck and that offensive line staff. And it's like, I don't know what was happening with Jawaan Taylor all last season. He simply like could not correct the issue that just carried on the entire season. Like,
it seemed like refusal.
And maybe that's what it is, because, you know, as many people have pointed out, like during his time in Jacksonville, like he did the exact same thing. But then there was people who are pointing out like, oh, there's, you know, a dozen tackles across the league that do this and they don't get flagged for it on a weekly basis. It's like, well, you can't do that anymore. You have to change. And so I hope the Chiefs coaching staff is working with him, because they have to get more out of him. Like they coming from Jacksonville, it was assumed that like he might not be the best right tackle in the NFL, but like he's going to be solid. Like you shouldn't have to worry about him. And then last season, there were points where he was a straight up liability, whether it was through penalties or whether it was just him having issues with the protections and stuff like that. So like, he just can't be a liability again this year. He can't be a negative in more than one way throughout the entirety of a football game, like he was so often last season. And it seems pretty simple. Like the problem is that like, if he doesn't get it figured out and he is a liability again, like they don't really have a lot of answers past him. So they kind of need him to get that figured out and try to be a better player and a better contributor this year.
Listen, can you give me Orlando Brown-esque? That to me, that's like, that should be, I should be able to expect that. Orlando Brown is not the best left tackle in football, but one, he's good, really good in the run game. It's a strength. And he holds up in the passing game. Holds up. Like, you got to give me something. Because to me, it'd be one thing if it were the penalties. And then after the penalties, he just held up and didn't give up rushes and didn't give up pressures or anything like that. But man, it was the penalties, and then penalties wasn't all false starts. Them penalties were holds. Them penalties were holds because he got beat so quick and he gave up pressures, and he probably got lucky because Patrick Mahomes can shimmy himself out of situations. But there are moments where he was giving up immediate pressure that they got to work around. As you said, BK, that whoever it is on the other side is going to make mistakes and is going to potentially need help. You can think about some of the pass rushers that they are going to have to deal with, and it's just hell in the division. I mean, they're going Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. If Joey doesn't have his leg injury by that time, when they play, those dudes, if they're on the field, can get after him. Miles Crosby, they'll switch him on the other side, can get after him. Like there are guys, they play the Niners. They play teams that have really good pass rushers. They play Danielle Hunter is a problem. You know, they're going to have to give help over there, right? Like that's a good example for a team like the Texans, who they play on this schedule. They play the Steelers. That's like you got to be able to handle Will Anderson. You got to be able to handle, not T.J. Watt, but the other guy who the Steelers have, whose name is just escaped. You got to be able to handle
Alex Highsmith.
Yeah, Highsmith. You got to be able to handle those dudes yourself. So, yeah, man, that Jawaan Taylor, that man $80 million. That man get $20 million, and then we're asking the question if he's good. Hell, I'm over asking you, was he serviceable? Hell, there were too many games. He was the worst player on the team that day.
I think it is it would be a perfect scenario if Kingsley wins the spot coming out of training camp and looks like he's a stud, with all kinds of potential. And then Taylor is okay. But then if he has any issues, I feel better about Wanya being that guy that can come in and replace him or something, as opposed to him just being bad and them having to figure it out on the other side.
Yeah, he was playing too close to the level of Wanya and Smith on the other side. There should be a clear separation between those guys. Their game was too close. Let's just be honest. He had some Kadarius Toney type moments from the offensive line perspective, and too many of them. That just can't happen.
The other thing that we need to keep in mind is just how rare it is for guys to come in and immediately start at least half of the games at left tackle as a rookie, especially on a good team. I just went back and looked, Ron, since 2021. So over the past 3 seasons, rookies that started at least 50% of their games at left tackle. Nobody did it last year, 2023 class. In 2022, the Chargers had it with Jamari Salier. I don't remember him. He was the guy that filled in for Rashawn Slater. The Bears did it with Braxton Jones. He ended up being really good, but the Bears stunk. The Panthers did it with Ike Ekwonu. He was okay, but the Panthers stunk. The Cowboys did it with Tyler Smith. That was out of necessity because their starting left tackle was hurt that year because he was always hurt. And then the Seahawks ended up doing it with Charles Cross, who was a really big find for them, but it was a surprise as well. So really just the 2 teams that did it that were pretty good that season. 2021, Slater did it for the Chargers. They were fine, but not great. Pittsburgh did it with another guy, and he wasn't very good, frankly. And they weren't a great team either. It's really rare for a good team to have a rookie left tackle and for them to start a bunch of games. So I think what you're going to see here is if they decide that, hey, this just is not working out the way that we were hoping that it would midway through camp, I think they're just going to call Donovan Smith. And they'll say, hey, Donovan, you were fine for us last year. We didn't have issues to the point where we couldn't win, the Super Bowl. Let's go ahead and bring you back in. And they'll call him midway through camp and he becomes your starting left tackle on opening night. But that would be my guess. I think it's more likely that Donovan Smith is starting than Wanya Morris. I think your top 3 guys, if I was to order them most likely to least likely, I would say rookie, Suamataia, then Donovan Smith, then Wanya Morris for me. That would be my 1, 2, 3.
Bakhtiari said he's ready, baby. He said his legs is feeling good, baby. Dave said he's ready. He said he's ready to be that next. He's ready to be that next left tackle. He's ready to go to a team that can win a Super Bowl. I think he was talking to the Chiefs. Just saying. Just telling you out there.
I believe that he would love to do it. I don't believe his body wants him to do it any longer. I think this would be a Kyle Long situation where you bring him in, you're like, oh yeah, I could see how this would work for the Chiefs, and then 2 weeks in, you're like, oh, that's why he was available.
Jawaan Taylor's got to join the group. He's got to be like you don't have a lot of worry about Joe Tooney. You don't have a lot of worry about Creed. You don't have a lot of worry about Trey. He's got to join that group so you can help the others. Oh man, at this point, man, Serda, I just want you to just give Holiday touchdown. Just give it a real fair shot.
It's not going to happen.
Come into it the way you did when you first walked into the final Avengers. Just like walk into it with just that level of optimism and let it be bad for you.
Why would I do that?
Because I just want to give it a shot.
That was something I spent 10 years of my life following.
Yeah, I know you cried.
Imagine how many years you've spent following the Chiefs.
Right. You I want to be there. I don't know about you. I'm gonna feel that Holiday touchdown. I'm gonna feel that sucker. Shoot.
If you, Ron, or Hallmark, you're in charge of this, and they announced this today, you at least put in a call to Kelsey, right?
Oh yeah.
Be like, hey,
yeah, I'm putting a call to all. Do you
at least want to do like some kind of cameo in this thing? Like you're eating at the restaurant while we're there.
I'm putting in a call for Kelsey and trying to negotiate Creed Humphrey. Like I'm shooting high, but
you want Jason and Travis though. You want both of them there, and then you're hoping that hey, maybe they bring their significant others.
Like if you could pull
too
like
small time for Travis now.
I agree, but I think that you at least have to place the call.
But I think you got to shoot a shot and say, hey, Travis and Jason, we got a scene. If you guys could maybe bring you and your significant others, and we can shoot you guys in this scene real quick, and bam, and bring in Kiley and then
we'll get Noah Gray. They'll get that.
You shoot for the stars, and then you negotiate on.
You know who's doing this, right?
No,
McCole is 100% a part of this. This is definitely McCole Hardman.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know if McCole is the vibe of the film that they're going with.
Justin Watson.
Now call me crazy here. I'm just not sure if
you're thinking more Trent McDuffie.
I think Trent, yes. I think Trent and his lady could be in this thing. George Karlaftis, he's in here. He's good for it. Don't know if Tershawn Wharton if this is his role, but I don't know. I did a charity event with McCole Hardman. I don't think this is his. Yes, I don't listen. I had to look into see who's doing this film again, but I don't know. I just don't get the feel that Holiday Touchdown, Hallmark Channel, starring these two people is the McCole Hardman. I could be wrong. I could be off. Who knows?
You know what would be amazing if Rashee Rice was like the way for me to get my brand back on track is to be a key member.
I damn sure know he ain't a
I think Hallmark would pass.
They reached out to Kelsey, and Kelsey was like, "Nah, I think I'm good." And then he reached out to Hallmark, and Hallmark was like, "No, we're actually okay."
Yeah. They say, "Here, we got this driving scene here. You see that we'd like to." Okay, we are out.